What's up, guys? Pokepasoda here, and have you ever wondered how pull rates really are for Pokemon cards? Stay tuned. Let's check it out. All right, guys. Pokepasoda here. We're going to check out some pull rates. And again, Pokemon, Topps, Donruss, Magic the Gathering, Hasbro, Nintendo, Wizard of the Coast, none of them ever have pull rates. They just don't publish it or do it. Okay? It's just the way it is. We don't know how many products are printed a year. We don't know how many of the hit cards there are. These are all just numbers up there, just like unicorns and rainbows. No one knows. We just think about it. So, what we're going to do is we're going to step back and we're going to look at 2021. 2021 Pokemon started off with Shining Fates, gross. Then it went to Battle Styles, Chilling Rain, Evolving Skies, Celebrations, Fusion Strike. 6 sets, 2021. In 2021, Pokemon produced roughly 10.2 billion cards. 2022, about 9.7 billion cards. So in those 2 years, they produced about 20 billion cards. Just the 2021 numbers alone was over 50%, or now it's 25%, I believe, of what Pokemon had produced before. So from 1995 all the way till 2020, they produced 75% of the cards. 2021, they produced 25% of the total population. So crazy and wild. Now, those numbers, though, are across all countries: Japan, Korean, Chinese, Spanish, Italian, German, American, all the different languages. So it does vary a little bit. So we don't know the numbers. We do know from some evidence online that 40 to 60% are English print. So we can assume 50%. 50% of 2021 at 10.2 billion is 5.1 billion. That's how many cards we can assume were produced in 2021. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Red, didn't they produce those cards as well in 2022? Because Pokemon is a 2 year cycle. Yes. So let's take about, let's take about, gosh, I don't know. Let's take 2 billion cards from 2022 and put that into the 2021 sets. So that's going to put us at about 7 billion cards. All right. So 7 billion is our number. That's how many cards we're going to say were produced from Shining Fates all the way to Fusion Strike. Okay. Now, why does that matter? Well, we're going to check out the top 2 cards of each set, not price wise, not the grades they got, but the amounts that were graded. So let's go ahead and check that out and let's see what we got. Now, the first one we have here is Charizard VMAX. This card was from Shining Fates. Roughly about 44,000 of these were graded. Next one we have is Skyla. There's about 9,000 of these graded. Then we have Triantar V. This is from Battle Styles. Great card. Not a lot of these graded though, only about 12,500. Then we have Empoleon V. This one's not a huge card to be graded a bunch, but we did have right around 4,000 to 5,000 of these graded. Then we got Blaziken VMAX. I like to call this one the top of the building chicken or skyscraper chicken, something like that. But this one graded out at about 9,200. And then we have the Moltres, great card. This one graded out quite a few at 12,000. Then we have the Umbreon VMAX. Now we're getting top tier stuff. This one had about 28,400 grades. And if you're thinking these numbers down here, if you add them up, like, that can't be right. If you go to the PSA Pop report, okay, so we have Umbreon Secret right here. It's at 28,349 graded across all genres, okay? Now, that one is about 28.4. Then the Rayquaza VMAX, or the top of the treetop lizard, or the sky lizard, whatever you want to call him, that's about 20,000. Then we get into celebrations. 55,000 of these were graded. It's crazy. Like, this one is graded hardcore. This one at 20,000, or 28,000, I guess. 25,000 for the Gengar VMAX. And then we had 19,000 for the Espeon VMAX. This does not include the Mew that's in this set. So there's a lot of cards being graded. Now, if I add up all these cards, I mean, we can just skyrocket through these. Add up these, every one of these, just keep going, okay? If you add up all these cards, it's 250,000 cards were graded from the 2021 sets. not just in 2021, but from 2021 till today. That's how many were graded. Okay. Now, what that shows is you have that many sets that are that many cards that are being graded. Typically, if you try to research this, you're going to see that 1 to 5% of all cards are graded. That means 95 to 99% of cards are not graded. They're either kept in sealed product or they're raw. So it's crazy to think that that's the case. Now, it's a pretty wild thing to think that, 1 to 5% of all cards are graded. Doesn't make sense to me. So let's take the number of 250,000. If that's 1%, that means there's 25 million of these 12 cards total floating around. Sealed product, raw material. They're just sitting out there. If it's 5%, we take the high number, that means there's 5 million of those that were produced. So that means out of we're saying 7 billion cards produced for 2021. Remember, 5.1 for 2021. Then we're going to add on another 2 billion just from 2022 because they get reprints. So 7 billion. So that means of the 7 billion cards printed for all of 2021 sets, and we could even look at that different. We could divide those equally among the 6 sets. Okay, so we could say there's 1.15 billion cards per set. It doesn't make sense that only 1 to 5% of these are graded. Now, I don't think it's quite correct. So let's check it out. Let's get the calculator out, actually. All right, so when we look at the calculator, let's take the 25 million. This is the 1% if they're graded, and we're going to divide it by the 7 billion. Okay, and then we're going to take it times 100 so we can have a percentage. That's going to leave us at about 0.35, 0.36%. So that means of all the cards that were produced for the 2021 class, 0.36% of those were actual, like, a hit. Okay, and so that'd be essentially, 1 out of every 300 packs. That probably doesn't seem that far off, to be honest with you. That's if 1% are graded. But let's see if possibly 5% are graded. So if we do 5% graded, that's going to be the 5 million. Okay, and we're going to divide that by the 7 billion. And we'll take it times 100. That's going to put us at about 0.07%. Now, this right here is going to be roughly 3.5 times less than the other one. And you're probably thinking, well, 1% to 5%, that's 5% different. Yes, I get that. But this will be roughly, we can roughly say it's the 5%. So that means for 1 in every 300 packs, this puts it in 1 in every 1,500 packs. That's if 5% are graded. Okay. So that's starting to add up. It's starting to think like, yeah, if that Umbreon VMAX is like 1 in 2,000 packs, this kind of makes sense. Okay. But I don't know that if we take all the alt arts across the board, that's the case. Because this is saying if we only have 12 alt arts, we're pulling 1 out of every 300 packs to 1 in every 1,500 packs of one of these 12. Okay. And I don't think that's true. I think probably closer to 5 to 15% of these cards are being graded. Let's just go through some of these quick and I'll show you which ones I think are being graded more. This one, for instance, right here, I think this one's probably graded at about 10%. This one, the Skyla, I'd say 1 to 3%. This one, 3 to 5%. Empoleon V, I would say this is probably about a 1 to 3%. Blaziken, 3 to 5%. Moltres, 3 to 5%. Umbreon VMAX, I think this is a 10 to 15% card. Okay. Let's say 10% of these are graded. 28,000 of these are graded, 10% of them. That means there's 280 of these out there in existence. That doesn't seem that far off, guys. Okay. If you're telling me that only 5% of these or 1% of these are graded, if you're telling me 1% of these are graded, you're telling me there's 2.8 million of these out there. I don't buy that. Don't buy that for a second. There's no way. Okay. If you're telling me 5% of these are graded, you're still telling me at that point you have 500,000 of these. And that just doesn't make sense to me either. I think this is a 10% card that's been graded. I think there's probably 280,000 of these in existence. That's just me from the numbers I'm looking at. The Rayquaza VMAX, same thing. I'd say this is a 10 to 15% card graded. This one right here, I think, has been graded at 20 to 30%. Okay. And why do I say that? It's at 55,000 of these have been graded. So if 10% of these have been graded, that means there's 5.5 million of these that are out there. 5.5 million. There's no way they made 5.5 million of these Charizards. There's no way. Okay. It's impossible. Now, if you narrow this down and say that's 20%, then that puts it about the, you got 55,000 of them. Okay. You're going to be at, gosh, or not 5.5 million, you'd be at 550,000. So it's at 10%, it'd be 550,000, not 5.5 million. So if you're at 20% though, then that's going to put that about 250,000. That's why I think it's about 20% of these have been graded, because I think a lot of these are out there. Do I think there's a lot of celebrations still sealed? I think there's some, but I think it got ripped pretty hard. I think it got printed a bunch, but there's no way I think there's 550,000 or more of these Charizards out there. That's just me. I don't think there is, but I could be wrong. Same with this Umbreon. I would say this Umbreon is probably, oops. I think this Umbreon's probably graded around 10% right now. Okay. So I mean, I think this one's probably a 250 to 300,000 card production. This Gengar V Max, this one's graded out at 25,000. I mean, I think this is a 10% grade rate. I just think Fusion Strike got opened so much. I don't think Fusion Strike got printed that much, to be honest. I thought there was a lot of it left out there, but it was in a lull. That's when the stuff got down to $80. People weren't buying it. There's pallets of it setting, but a pallet doesn't hold that many cards. Like it holds, there's a lot of cards on there. Because I mean, there's like 56 cases or something that's on a pallet. I think there's 56. I can't remember, but it's like $50,000 if you wanted to buy a pallet when they were $80 a box or something like that. But I don't know. I just don't think that there's any way that more like 1 to 5% of these have been graded. I think it's closer to 10, maybe 15%. This one, probably a little bit lower, but still pretty high up there. But let me know what you guys think, okay? Because like this is something I've been thinking about, because you'll never get these cards in there that'll ever say, what's what. And then, you see this with sports cards, Topps Chrome, the Cooper Flag, that was the chase card. Everybody wanted it. It got pulled the first week, like the first couple days. And after it got pulled, no one bought Topps Chrome. It's just sitting there. So I don't know, guys. That's just my thoughts about it. What do you think the pull rates are for this stuff? Do you think it's pretty close to that? Do you think only 1% of stuff gets graded? 5%? 10%? I think a lot of cards is between the 5 and 15%, to be honest with you. So that's what I got, guys. Pokeepisode. Remember, like and subscribe. Thanks a bunch for watching, and I appreciate all the new subs. It's awesome. I appreciate it a lot. So thanks a bunch, guys. Remember, catch them all.